Hi, with the SportsCenter update, I'm Robert Flores. NASCAR announcing its Hall of Fame nominees for the class of 2015 on Friday. And here now, a look at some of the notables. Bill Elliott, a former Cup Series champion, two-time Daytona 500 winner, and a 16-time most popular driver, is new on the ballot this year. Terry Labonte, new as well, won the 84 and 1996 Cup Series championships. Notable returning nominees include Rick Hendrick and Wendell Scott. Mark Martin was eligible with the new rules in place this year, but was not selected. Hall of Fame voting will take place in May. 5 nominees from the 25 will make it in. Now, here's NASCAR Now with Mike Massaro and Ricky Craven.
Welcome to NASCAR Now, everyone. Mike Massaro here alongside Ricky Craven. And as we look ahead to Saturday, teams only have one more practice before the Daytona 500.
Mike, you know, most of the drivers have business taken care of, but for a few, Clint Bowyer, Michael Waltrip, you got Martin Truex Jr., they're in backup cars that haven't seen the racetrack yet. Saturday's critical for them.
Of course, there was on-track activity Friday, and we'll get you up to speed on what transpired. Coming up, the field is set for the Daytona 500, but preparations continue with practice sessions Friday. See who found speed and who might be still searching. The nationwide season opens up Saturday, and there will be several fresh faces in the field. Why one rookie, though, has a very familiar name. With his move to Sprint Cup, Austin Dillon is not defending his nationwide title this year, but will Ty Dillon pick up where his brother left off? Practice at the Daytona International Speedway, and this car got damaged pretty heavily last night. Martin Truex Jr.'s car, his team going to work. Unfortunately, he was not able to get that car on the track for practice today. Jimmy Johnson, however, was. He was 19th quickest.
Yeah, don't fall for it, guys. Look, this is a head fake. They wreck a couple cars. They want everybody to bail on them. They'll be contenders for the 500.
Jimmy Johnson also in a backup car. Austin Dillon in his primary. He'll lead the field to the green. He was not quite as fast in race trim, however, 21st fastest. Carl Edwards had a little bit of damage from last night's duel, but he'll stay with his primary.
Yeah, no need to paint that fender. It might damage it again on Saturday.
Was 16th quickest. Meanwhile, his teammate in the Roush Fenway camp, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., posting the fastest lap of the practice session today. And as you can see, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. at the top of the board, a speed of just over 197 miles per hour. That was the fastest during this shortened practice session. They missed about 20 minutes because of rain, and the second session was completely washed out. 2 of the 4 Stewart-Haas cars made their way into the top 5, with Danica Patrick laying down the 3rd fastest lap, and Tony Stewart's lap coming in as the 5th fastest. Meanwhile, Denny Hamlin, who won both the Unlimited and his dual race, was the only Toyota to make it in the top 10 with his speed of 195.729 miles per hour, sliding into 10th place. Our man at the racetrack this weekend is NASCAR Now lead reporter Marty Smith. And Marty, with the practice crash Wednesday and the big wreck last night in the second dual race, there are a number of drivers and backup cars, and it would seem for them today's practice took on a little extra importance.
It absolutely did, Mike, even exacerbated by the fact that the second practice on Friday, was canceled due to weather. NASCAR made that decision so they could ensure that both the Camping World Truck Series and Nationwide Series qualifying sessions got in. So there was only one practice session here on Friday. Now, some of those drivers involved in that wreck on Thursday night in the duel, Jimmy Johnson, Martin Truex, Jamie McMurray, Clint Bowyer, all of those guys go to backup cars. Some of them got on the track and are happy, some didn't.
Backup's good. The guys had a good car to use. I came down here afraid of just having 2 bullets, and fortunately we did have another car. I guess Chad didn't want me to be too aggressive in some situations and told me I only had 2 good cars, and we used those up in those 2 races. But this car has great speed. It seems to actually be a little quicker than the 500 car, just based on a little bit of practice we had here.
The guys will, you know, double and triple check everything, and you know, it's just another race car. So I mean, I'm sure it'll be fine.
We're one of the few teams that still has their original car, so that's good. And we wanted to make sure it stayed that way without taking too many chances, because it's just practice. But car's been very fast. You know, no one's led more laps this week. Very, very optimistic for Sunday. We just got to avoid the wrecks. If we can do that, we've got enough speed to be able to win a race.
Really confident the Caterpillar Chevrolet is race ready. Guys will do their nut and bolt checks, and just feel like we're competitive with the guys we need to be competitive with. We need to get to that 500th mile and see where we shake out.
You saw Martin Truex there. He wasn't even able to get on the track at all on Friday. His team was working diligently to make sure they got his backup car prepared to go on the track, but with no second practice, he was unable to even get out there. Now, I did ask Jimmy Johnson. He's a guy who's done it all. There's nothing left for him to prove, but I wondered, having wrecked 2 race cars in a week down here during Speed Weeks, how does that impact his confidence? And he said, you know, it's plate racing. It's been weird stuff that's happened, so he's able to let it roll off. And then he kind of grinned and said, and who knows, maybe my bad luck's out of the way. Mike?
He tends to find his good luck as the season wears on. I'm sure he's going to have his share. Backup cars, there are a lot of drivers in them for this Daytona 500. What do you think it's like for these guys rolling into the biggest race of the year in a machine that's not necessarily their best?
I've had a few backups in my career.
I'm sure you have.
You know, so the risk for the crew chief is you worry about, all right, do we have everything tight? Are there going to be any leaks? The front splitter we saw with the 18 car in the qualifying race hitting the racetrack disrupts the entire day. So do we have enough clearance? Those are the things that keep Todd Barrier awake, the crew chief for the 78. From a driver's perspective, you want to make sure the seat's comfortable and the mirrors are adjusted perfectly, because you're spending the entire day on Sunday, the Daytona 500, watching your mirror, and you want that angle correct. You want it to be able to protect your left rear quarter panel. You want to be able to see just a piece of the right rear quarter. That's what the drivers focused on here in practice with their backup car.
And meanwhile, there are a number of drivers who are still in their primary machines, and I guess their task in practice is to protect that car, make sure nothing happens to it. You saw guys like Denny Hamlin, Matt Kenseth, not run a lot of laps in practice. What do you think of that approach?
Mike, there's a lot of value in running well in those qualifying races, and in this case, Denny Hamlin, Matt Kenseth winning, because you've got all those things I described as far as being comfortable taken care of. And you also know you have a good, solid race car, a fast race car, so you want to preserve that. I talked to Matt Kenseth early this morning, and I was surprised at how excited he was about the race car. He talked about how good the balance was. Denny Hamlin also on TV today saying, look, you know, there's too much risk with practicing a lot. So it's pretty clear. There's the haves and the have-nots right now as it relates to practice.
Well, Mother Nature protected them a little bit today. It took away 20 minutes of that first practice and canceled the second one entirely, so they didn't take as much risk as they were required to because of the practice
schedule. Some are okay with that.
They still got 90 minutes tomorrow, though, so we'll see what happens. Folks, don't go away. We still have plenty left under the hood. Ty Dillon makes the full-time jump to the Nationwide Series this season. What's it like for him trying to give the Dillon family back-to-back championships? And talk about family pedigrees. Chase Elliott certainly has one. Why he will answer the siren call of the NASCAR faithful from Dawsonville, Georgia.
When the Cape...
Coming up this weekend, it's the Nationwide Series season opener at Daytona. That's on ESPN2. Our coverage starts with NASCAR Countdown on Saturday at noon Eastern. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is the in-race reporter. And then Sunday morning, it's Sports Center at Daytona, presented by Goodyear. Catch it at 10 a.m. Eastern right here on ESPN2. Alan Bestwick anchors that coverage, and he joins us now.
The Daytona International Speedway, where on Sunday the temperature will be 79 degrees. There'll be 100,000 plus fans in those giant grandstands, and they'll be ready to watch the 56th running of the Daytona 500, which, based on what we've seen so far this Speed Weeks, could be quite a wild show. Alan Bestwick in the ESPN pit studio, joined by the three-time Daytona 500 winner and new Hall of Famer Dale Jarrett and champion crew chief Andy Petrie. The story of Speed Week so far have been crashed race cars. It's really been pretty wild.
It really has. I don't think we've seen this in quite a while. Normally things are pretty calm until the lead doesn't get to the 500. But what we have seen are drivers making mistakes, getting into each other. The package is a little bit different for these cars, and I think the drivers are having a tougher time managing all of that, but it's put a lot of work on the crews.
Yeah, one of the things they've done, they've tried to make the packs a little bit closer than they were last year, but they still don't have quite enough downforce to be running so close together. And you've seen all of these cars get together last week, and now in practice we saw a lot of incidents, and then the races last night were very, very eventful.
Now, perspective on this, when you're running nearly 200 miles an hour, the bubble of air that's being pushed around that race car, it's like a hurricane-force wind, and it makes crazy things happen.
Yeah, it really does, and it's hard to see that sometimes on TV, but from the driver's seat, there's a lot of things happening around there, and all a car has to do is move just a little bit off of one part of your car onto another, and that air goes with that, and then all of a sudden you're in trouble.
Yeah, that second race came close to finishing clean. Jimmy Johnson actually ran out of fuel, and that's what caused this big accident. Everybody wadded up coming off of 4, looking at the start-finish line for the checker flag, and it was big.
So all of the carnage has led to a number of big-name drivers having pretty bad starting spots for the Daytona 500. While we look at that, anxiety over Sunday's race high among the drivers?
Oh, absolutely. The drivers that I've talked with still are very uncertain about what's going to happen. They have a better handle on what's going on. But these drivers that are starting near the back, the good thing is they have 500 miles to work their way there, but they know the way these cars are driving, they could be in trouble early.
Yeah, I think a lot of guys are going to really focus on getting to the 500-mile mark or trying to get to that 10 miles to go, because it's going to be tough for these guys to stay out of trouble. If they want to race hard, they're going to have to save it for the end, because if they try this in the middle of the race, there won't be enough cars for a big finish.
High anxiety among the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series drivers and teams as they continue to close in on their biggest race of the season, the Daytona 500. Sunday afternoon, how wild will it be?
Thank you, guys. We turn our attention now to the Nationwide Series, where there are a number of young drivers this season. One of them carries the weight of a very heavy family pedigree. How heavy? Well, consider this. His father's nickname included the word awesome. Yes, Chase Elliott, the son of Bill Elliott, is becoming the new pride of Dawsonville.
When the siren went off in Dawsonville, you knew Bill won.
Bill Elliott wins the 1985 Daytona 500.
When Bill Elliott won his first Winston Cup race in '83, I seen a siren in the pool room, and I hooked it up, put it outside, and sounded it where the people in town knowed something had happened. And that same siren is sounded for all his 44 Winston Cup wins.
The pride of Georgia, Bill Elliott.
You know, Bill put Dawsonville on the map. I would have never known where Dawsonville was.
Racing and Dawsonville have always come hand in hand, and what my dad and his brothers have done, and my granddad, just kind of the whole racing heritage.
We have 5 winners from Dawsonville to win the Daytona: Bernard Long, Roy Hall, Lloyd C., Gober Sosby, and Bill Elliott. How many other towns can proclaim that they have 5 Daytona winners?
We were just a blip on the map, and then all of a sudden, $1 Million Bill and Awesome Bill from Dawsonville in the mid-'80s. It really changed the whole town. Dawsonville had our superstar.
And we couldn't be more happy to present Awesome Bill from Dawsonville, Georgia, $1 million.
You know, if you took the odds of, you know, Bill Elliott coming out of Dawsonville, Georgia, is going to start their own team, and they're going to win cup races and a championship, they were going to ask you what you were smoking.
Bill's last win, we were at the Dawsonville pool room. Gordon come in and he turned the siren on, and it kind of brought you back to the glory days of Bill.
As young as I can remember him being, he always wanted to be a race car driver.
He came to me when he was pretty little and said he wanted to race, and I said, that's between you and your mother. You work it out with her, and whatever y'all do is fine.
I knew there was no fighting it. He and Bill had already been discussing it.
Well, obviously, he got his way.
The youngest winner of the ARCA Racing Series, the 9 of Chase Elliott.
When Chase came, it's like history repeating itself. All of us that missed out back in Bill's heydays, he's our next generation.
Times are different now than what they were when my dad was, you know, racing. I've been really fortunate to have a lot of his supporters support me, and that's always comforting to know that those people are behind you.
I don't want to say that it's going to put Dawsonville on the map, because Dawsonville's been on the map. But I think it's just going to explode again.
The higher he gets up in the series, you can really start to see the town just, it's almost kind of like it's starting to swell with a little pride. And you see a lot of the younger generation get behind racing. We're looking for the tradition of racing in Dawsonville to extend a long time. And Chase is the one that's going to, he's picking up the banner and he's taking it with him.
When Chase started winning some of his earlier races, Gordon decided that he would do the siren again.
I have a new siren for Chase Elliott, got it up on the pole.
really ever since I started racing Bandoleros. That Gordon's been doing that on the weekends that we win, so that's a pretty neat deal to kind of keep that tradition going.
The first time I sounded the siren for Chase, we hadn't sounded in a while for Bill, so people started coming out of the building, looking up in the sky, and they learned what it is now. When that siren sounds, everybody in town knows Chase had won a race.
Still ahead, Austin isn't the only Dillon in the spotlight this week. Why Ty Dillon is earning his share of attention as he sets his sights on the nationwide title. Don't just... There are certainly perks to being a young NASCAR driver. Just ask Ty Dillon and Kyle Larson. The two spent part of their off day Tuesday fulfilling their need for speed, flying with the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds. No word as of yet which emerged as the top gun.
Oh man, it was amazing. It was so cool. There's nothing like it. You can't even explain it. It's hard to put in words. When you do those G pulls and everything, it's, you know, your body's just pulling down so hard. And the views you get riding in that thing is amazing. And
it was actually a lot of fun. I just got sick from the start, so I wasn't up there a whole lot. But the G's actually weren't that bad. I had a lot of fun with that. It just, once you pull out of them is when I would get lightheaded.
Both those drivers hope to be flying high above the standings when the season ends, especially Ty Dillon, whose big brother Austin set the bar pretty high last year, winning the nationwide title. Austin followed that up by winning the pole for the Daytona 500. Ty, though, is not to be outdone, and as Ryan McGee explains, he has plenty of motivation entering the season.
For some, for most, following a famous grandfather and then a successful brother conjures up imagery of living beneath the shadow. But for Ty Dillon, it's a way of life and not one he'd change.
I don't think we'll ever leave the shadow of being Richard Childress' grandson. You know, you never leave the shadow of your family, and I don't want to. I'm proud of my family's name. I'm proud of what we've been accomplished, and I want to be able to carry our family's name back to the top level of racing. I'm the kind of person who's going to put more pressure on myself than any other person can put on me. Even if there's one person saying that he's got what he's got because of who he is, I'm going to go show him, yeah, I do, but I'm going to work harder than you, and I'm going to be better than you.
The NASCAR Nationwide Series champion is going to be Austin Dillon.
I want to go out and win this championship next year, to be on the same level as my brother, because I believe I'm just a good driver, if not better than him. And I know he feels the same way as me. But also, at the same time, that's my brother and that's my family, and I'm not going to miss a moment to celebrate such an awesome moment in his life. So as soon as the race was over in Homestead, I ran straight to the wall with his guys to celebrate with them because I know what it meant to them.
Competition between brothers is nothing new, especially for the Dillon boys. It's always been there.
We've done everything together our whole lives, and we're best friends on and off the racetrack. We're all the time competing at anything. You know, it might be leaving a restaurant and we're 20, 21, and 23 years old and we'll foot race to the car. We'll trip or do whatever it takes just to beat the other one to the car and just have bragging rights over each other. And we've done it our whole life.
Okay, let's race. We'll have a race.
It pushes us to be better.
Harvick still stays in front. Harvick up about a half a line. Around goes Harvick. Around goes Ty Dillon.
3 just dumped me. Exactly the reason why I'm leaving RCR, because you got those kids coming up and they got no respect for what they do in this sport, and they've had everything fed to them with a spoon. So it's a shame you got to get taken out by some rich kid like that.
Since 2001, Ty has watched Kevin Harvick carry the banner of Richard Childress Racing. That made Harvick's criticism that much more impactful.
We've heard it our whole career, so it's nothing really new. It's just, you know, it meant a little more because it was somebody who I looked up to who was saying it, somebody that meant a lot to me because of what he's done for RCR. And I figured that he would have had a better understanding for Austin and I, and we had spent a lot of time with. So, you know, that was an upsetting moment. It continues to push me to go prove to people that I'm here and I'm not just, you know, a rich kid with a spoiled brat. I'm putting in the work.
Yeah! We did it!
I'm at the race shop every single day, working out with my pit crew every day.
Call it a shadow if you want, but that's not how he sees it. Being a Dillon, being a Childress, that's not a burden. It's a challenge.
I want to win a championship in the NASCAR Nationwide Series, and I want to win a bunch of championships in the Sprint Cup Series. You know, I strive to be like Jimmy Johnson. I don't know if anybody will ever be like Jimmy Johnson again, but I want to win championships and win a lot of races. I want to be a future legend of this sport.
A lot of eyes on that kid for sure. Straight ahead, what about his brother, Austin Dillon? He's got the 3 car on the pole for the Daytona 500, but why? That's not the only major storyline heading into Sunday.
Dinners.
Don't miss SportsCenter at Daytona, presented by Goodyear on Sunday at 10 a.m. on ESPN2. We'll hear from several drivers, including the pole sitter Austin Dillon, Danica Patrick, and last year's winner, Jimmy Johnson. Of course, Dillon is on the pole, but one of the feel-good stories revolves around 2-time champion Terry Labonte, who raced his way into the field through his Budweiser duel on Thursday. It'll be Labonte's 32nd Daytona 500 start. That's just one short of the record set by Dave Marcus. Labonte told MRN Radio that this will be his final Daytona 500. He's a 3-time runner-up in the race, but he's never won it. And certainly one of the greatest drivers who has never won the Daytona 500. But in his defense, it's not an easy race to win.
Not an easy race at all. Texas Terry, my old teammate, he's a 2-time champ and a real good guy.
Let's break it down. What are the keys to winning this thing?
You know, one of the keys is to have a clean pit road, and that was very evident in the qualifying races last night, Mike. So if we look at the first qualifying race, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. comes in hot, carries too much speed. He can't slow the car down, locks up the right front tire. You can see him using the transmission to help slow the car down. 3rd gear, 2nd gear, finally gets it down to the minimum speed, but he had to take 4 tires as a result. Leaving pit road, the driver who dominated the race in the second duel was Brad Keselowski. A little urgency leaving, speeding, a pass-through penalty. You can see him lock up the left front tire here. What's the penalty for that? Well, a flat tire as he left the pit road, and as a result, this is a great example of how you can lose the Daytona 500. So a clean pit road is critical, among other things.
Absolutely. There's a lot of things that are factors here, and one of them, as we've seen throughout the course of the week, altercations on the racetrack. We saw crashes in practice, in the Unlimited, also in the duel. A lot of people expecting some carnage in the 500. What do you think?
Drivers are still sorting through this new package, and Matt Kenseth told me this morning, as good as his car handled in the qualifying race last night under the lights, he's a little skeptical about the heat of the day, 1 o'clock, you know, green flag drops at Daytona on Sunday. He thinks it could be challenging.
There could be some action.
And I agree with him.
It's going to be fun to watch. One more practice remains on Saturday afternoon, and then the green flag for the Daytona 500 Sunday. We'll see you Monday on NASCAR Now.